Bismillah. I mean, people can like slowly come in, but inshallah. Bismillah minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So, if you guys have been to the last halaqa, we were talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, Al-Alim and Al-Hakim, which means that He's the all-wise, He knows everything. And this, when we did the name before, we actually were talking about who's your favorite prophet. And then most of the, who were here, they were talking about Yusuf alayhi salam. And we were talking about Musa alayhi salam and connecting it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name. And since, everybody talked about Yusuf alayhi salam, so I was like, you know what, let me just do one with Yusuf alayhi salam, right? So today's halaqa, I want to talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, Al-Rafiq and Al-Latif, which means He's the most subtle and He's the companion He's the companion of us, right? He's always with us. He's always with us to any steps we take in our life. He's with us, right? So I will go back into those names and what they mean. But in the beginning, when we do the halaqas, we usually have an icebreaker question that okay, what do you think about this, or who's your favorite prophet? So since I'm going to talk about why I chose Yusuf alayhi salam, why I wanted to talk about Yusuf alayhi salam. But before that, I wanted to ask you guys, sometimes this question is going to be a little bit I want you guys to think a little bit, because before I used to be okay, what's this, what's that, how is your week, but this question is going to make you actually think a little bit. So the question I want to ask you guys is that what was one story you were going to tell me, a time in your life that you wanted something and it didn't go that way? Let's say you wanted a class, or maybe you wanted to have a certain internship or certain something, or you wanted to go somewhere with your friends, something, it didn't go that way, but instead what happened was best for you. So let's say you wanted to do something, it didn't go this way, or maybe you had something coming up, it got canceled, but then instead what happened was actually good for you. When you think about it, it's oh, I was supposed to go out with my friends, I didn't, and then guess what? My cousins came over. Something like that. Something that you wanted to go a certain way and it didn't go that way, but instead what happened was good. It was better, So when I think about it today, I wanted to share the story, and then you guys will answer me, from this side. So the story I want to mention today is that, so last I think it was a Wednesday, or I think it was a Thursday, so I knew that I had exam this week, I was gonna have the exam this Wednesday. So last Wednesday I was okay, you know what, I have to prep for that, I have to study for it, I have to study this weekend, so I shouldn't be having any plans with my friends or anything, right? So I was yeah, I have to prep for the exam, it was the second midterm, and I had to do that exam this Wednesday 8:15 at night, and I was gonna study for it this Saturday or Sunday, both days, weekends, we just just stay at home and study and cram. So what happened was my exam got canceled. So which was happy, in a way, it's something bad that I would exams are basically bad. It was something bad that I really wanted to okay, you know what, I'm gonna prep for it. Something I'm just oh yeah, my weeks are gonna be so miserable, I'm just gonna stay home and study, right? Instead, what happened was my exam got canceled, and then Thursday on my train back, I met one of my friends, and she was oh, there's this event happening. It's about this one speaker. If you guys heard of a Myth Institute, if you guys know about that institute, one of the speaker from there, he's coming to New York, and he's coming to this academy that's close to us, it's in Long Island. And she's oh, why don't you come with us? And I'm oh wait, I actually don't have an exam and I can go. And guess what the topic of that event was? It was a tour of tales, and it was about the life story of Yusuf alayhi salam. So it kind of ties back to what I want to talk about today, is that I didn't plan to talk about Yusuf alayhi salam, but somehow ended up being that way. And then I went to that event, and it was really beautiful. Me and my friends, we were just sitting on the first row, and I was just taking notes the whole time. The whole time I was just okay, let me jot that down. Okay, that was a good one. Okay, let me just jot that one. It was a gem. Let me just write that one. So I have a bunch of notes from there, and I wanted to talk about that too, inshallah, today. Because it was just so exciting. But so yeah, coming back to the question, I want to ask from you, what's your name? And tell me any story if you can come up with or think of, if you want some time to think about, you can do that too. But one thing that you didn't expect to happen, or something good, or something was bad is gonna happen but it didn't happen, just right out of your mind, what you can think of. I'll give you guys some time to think about, but I really want you guys to just like, think like, okay, this happened. Like for me, it was that exam, like it got canceled and then something good happened. And then right here I am talking about Yusuf alayhi salam. But yeah, think about anything you can think about. You can take some time to think about it too. Okay. Do you guys have any stories that you want to share? Something that you're like, wait, that happened. It wasn't like the best thing, but then it happened in a better way. Something like that. Do you have any stories that you want to share? Something like you had in mind that you wanted it to go that way, but instead it happened in a better way.
I mean, in mine one is like in high school.
Okay, say your name first.
Oh,
yes.
My name's Aisha.
Yeah.
I'm a freshman and study biology. So in high school, there was a program I was in, and since freshman year, I wanted to achieve this position. And in junior year, you can apply. So I applied junior year. There was like an interview and everything, and I thought the interview went well, and I surprisingly got in.
Okay.
But the bad thing was that the people I surrounded myself with, they started saying that I didn't deserve the position because I was very quiet in high school. I was very shy, so I could never be like a big leader or anyone with high power. So just all that negative talk was like questioning myself, like, do I really deserve this position? Like, should I tell them like I don't want it anymore? Like, I don't know what to do. So then I accepted the position. I was like, why not give it a try and see if it'll work out? And alhamdulillah, it did.
It did work out.
I feel like maybe neglecting all those negative thoughts and actually trying and seeing if you can actually do it.
Right. It's actually like it's gonna tie it back to Yusuf too. Like if you know about his stories, he also had the same type of like like his brothers were actually hating on him. They didn't like who he was. He was beloved to Yaqub alayhi salam, and he's like all his brothers were like he doesn't deserve to be his beloved. Like maybe if we have him out of the picture, our father is gonna love us more, and then we're gonna come back to that. But yeah, like one thing you said that you neglect, like you just like didn't like dive into those negativity. Like you had people that first thing I think it was really good for you is that you actually like pointed out instead of like, oh, maybe no, maybe like like instead you knew the problem, like okay, this was a problem, I know it's affecting me in a negative way, but instead you didn't let it affect you. You actually like went ahead and get that position, and which was actually really good. Like you should like anytime you have an opportunity, you should like do it. Anything like comes your way, like internship wise or any classes, like let's say you never had the chance to take this class, you are getting the chance to take this class, just take it. Like what is gonna, like what do you have to lose? Like so anytime like you have any opportunities, anything like you just see, let's say for me, like when our dean, like I think he's the dean of psychology, he always sends us these emails, right? And he always like like sends us about like internship or like a class, like I actually did one of this EXP plus, if you have those categories, one of the categories like EXP requirement. I actually did this one internship with this organization. It's called Her Story organization, and it's really nice. Like I would have known about that class unless if I checked my email, and I was like, okay, let me just apply. And then it was really easy class. You just have to write a memoir about your life, and it was really nice because like I wrote about me and my grandma, so like it just kind of like worked out that way because I was basically taking a class, but I was also like reliving my memories. Like it was really nice. So like yeah, any internship, anything you see like coming your way, you just like you should actually like like try your best. Like what do you have to lose? I have a lot of like, I remember it, so I'm like working as a research assistant for 2 of the labs. So one of the labs I got in, and then other lab I wasn't sure about. I was like, I don't know, like should I apply because I already am in one lab. But alhamdulillah, what happened was I was like, what do I have to lose? Let's just do the interview, and I did it, and then alhamdulillah I got in. But instead, like now I think it was better for me in a way that I can manage both of them. Like I thought I didn't have enough time, but alhamdulillah now it looks like I do have time. But like I would have never known unless I tried. So yes, like you should like I would say go for it. That's like the line. Like whatever you have coming your way, you should just go for it. What do you have to lose? You just like try it out and see, maybe you're gonna see like something, let's say you have more opportunities coming out of that. So yeah, that was a good one. What's your name and what story do you have to share with us? Anything you just have in your mind, like anything, any story, like it could be anything.
My name is Jonathan, and a story that I have to share, it's like a while back, but it's like, I don't remember the full details, but I was like really tired and stressed. Like I just really wanted to give myself a break, but it was on a weekend too, so like I think it was a Sunday I believe.
Yeah.
Saturday or Sunday, one of the two. And the buses on Saturday and Sunday, they're free.
Okay.
So I made the impulsive decision of being like, let me just hop on the bus and it's free. Let me just go to the last stop, which is Patchogue, and see what I can do now.
Is it the bus that goes too long? Like the okay.
So I was like, I woke up early in the morning too, and I was like, should I study? I was like, no, let me just go out. And
Okay.
I did, and there was like this water side that they had, and I like to like just spend time just sitting near the water.
Right.
And so I went all the way down and walked all the way to the beach. It was like so nice and refreshing.
Yeah.
I felt really happy when I like got that break finally. Like I
Right.
didn't realize it at that time, but the days after I was way happier than I usually.
Right. It was like a reset, and you needed that kind of way. Yeah.
It was off of an impulsive decision because usually it's like I plan to do it after everything, but like I like engross myself in everything so much that I forgot to take a break.
Right. Sometimes you need that. Like, the fall break too, like you just needed that fall break. You needed that reset. But that was really nice. Like you went by yourself, and then that must have been like adventurous day, right? Yeah, no, true. Like, and you needed that, like, being by the nature, really, like, just like sets your mind in a like good mood, and you're like, okay, coming back, you're like, I'm ready to do all of that. Yeah, I remember last semester too, like me and my mom and like with a bunch of like our neighborhood friends, like we went out, and it was like a really like pretty lake, and then it was just a nice one because I had like exams coming up the week after. It was like a finals week, but just going out, it was a really nice, like you just felt the breeze, and like you just like, okay, you know what, I'm ready for the like whatever's coming my way. But yeah, that was a really good one. It kind of reminds me I think December 31st, last year, I remember I was like, you know what, I've never taken like a solo trip by myself to the city. Like I always go to the city but with my friends, but like I've never been there by myself. And as you guys know, like city is really hectic. It's like the subways are coming and going, and like it's just people are walking by, they're busy, and like you can really get lost. If you get lost, it's hard to find your way, right? But I had the map, Google Map, and then me and the Google Map, we were like the best friends the whole day. And then I was just there by myself. I went to Grand Central, I went to the library, I went to Bryant Park, and I went to this cafe by myself. I was reading the book, and then I think Maghrib, like I prayed outside too, like in the jostling, like really crazy city. I was just like on the corner. I'm like, let me just find a corner, and then I prayed, and then I came back, and it was like a really nice experience in a way where like I'm like thinking like to myself, I'm like, you know what, actually I'm capable of like being by myself and like taking this big like adventure by myself, and it was a really nice time. So I highly recommend if you guys like want to do something, like just like to see if you can do it, right? Like to like internship wise, or like just going by yourself wise, like do it. You will see that you are like capable to do those things. Like you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, like with me with the labs, like I don't know if I can manage 2 labs, but like alhamdulillah, like if you have like something you want to like achieve or you want to do, just do it, and then you're gonna see like it's gonna be better for you, because it's kind of like in a way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends some things in our way, and those things are like unexpected, but sometimes it happens to be something good, right? So yeah, so those are good ones. Do you have any story you want to share with us? Yes.
Okay, my name is Hannah.
Yeah.
So back in 11th grade, so throughout high school I was part of our varsity badminton team, right?
Okay.
And it was approaching the end of the season. Our school team had been winning, like our girls team honestly, had been winning so many games, and we only lost to one school. And if we lost to one other school, we wouldn't be like a league champions, or we would be tied with other league
So you guys were in the semifinals, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you don't know, like the school Ward Melville, which is right here, that's the school we were against, and they have a reputation for being super good.
Okay.
So me and my badminton partner, we played doubles, 3rd position.
Wow.
And we basically, it was like pressure. We had to be the ones to win because everyone else was like, it was like hit or miss.
Okay.
If they win or not. And so we went in confident that we might win. But we went out there, we won the first set, lost the second one.
It was like 3-set game. Okay.
Yeah,
What happened to the third
tiebreaker.
one?
Then we lost the third set.
Oh no!
So-
You guys tried your best, I bet.
And we were
Yeah.
like, oh, that was like, the team depended on us.
Yeah.
And even the coach, he was like, oh man, it's whatever.
Yeah.
So Ward Melville ended up winning like 5 games to 4. Which is
Okay.
like 1 game. It would have been ours.
Okay.
So anyways, we move on and we feel bad, but we just let it
Yeah.
go. Then we look at our schedule because we have separate things for playoffs, which is
Okay.
within the county. So we look at our playoff schedule and we're playing Ward Melville like in 2 weeks again.
Oh, okay.
So me and my partner were gonna play the same people again, and I told her, hey, wait a minute, what if this sets us up for like a redemption? Or, like,
Yeah, the redemption
or
arc. Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
So we get to the playoffs game, and I think we got to tiebreaker again. They won the first one, we lost the second one, then we got to tiebreaker. And then it was like we were winning, I don't know what happened, but we were winning by a landslide.
Okay. With the same school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the whole like gymnasium was watching it. We were the last game to play first
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
And it's like, oh god, the pressure's on. But we won finally, and it was just really fun.
Yeah.
The people who we played were super nice.
Mm-hmm.
But our school lost to them in the end.
Like there was like multiple games that you had to play, but you won in your match, but there were other matches that you guys lost. Okay.
But it was fun.
It was fun, yeah. No, it just sounds like really good. No, like that's a like I don't know if you have like those like stories that's like like you have those arcs.
Yeah.
You actually like fought to like tooth and nail, and you had like you lost and then you won against them. So basically that, yeah.
Plot twist. We did play them again this year.
Okay.
And it was in this division thing. But we lost.
You lost.
Yeah, from my partner this year.
No, but you guys play. That's actually like it's a good that you mentioned that. I think we have a charity week like girls badminton tournament.
Oh, yeah, I can't make it.
Oh, okay, yeah. It was.
Citation.
Yeah, it was like Thursday, I think 2 to 4. But yeah, like we have a badminton player right here. It would have been nice if you like were to play. I used to play too, but like I never played like in a game. But like I used to play, but like like the matches, like it was really nice. Yeah, badminton is a really good like sport if you like know how to play it. It's really nice. But yeah, like now that you mentioned it, it's really nice. Like I think one of the things like I really like sports, like that thing you mentioned, it was really nice because sports are really nice. Like if you play any type of games, it just like makes you like feel competitive and like you just have so much fun. So that's a
It also makes you very patient.
yeah. Like you just have to like wait for the win. Yeah. And like that kind of ties back into like with Yusuf alayhi salam too. Like if you think about his life, he was like waiting patiently, and that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name Al-Latif comes because he's subtle. He was always subtle with Yusuf alayhi salam. And if you think about it, if you think about his life, he was losing. If you think he lost, like he was thrown into a well, he lost, he was sold into slavery, and we're gonna like go through his life, and then he obviously was like thrown into prison. So losses after losses after losses, right? But in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was preparing him for something bigger. He was gonna become like, he was gonna become the minister of Egypt, and he was gonna basically, think about like how the share of food goes to each country, or like, how the share of food goes to each family. So that's a really big responsibility, right? And one thing I remember, like I read it somewhere about like, Yusuf alayhi salam's story is that one thing that he was lost, that like Yaqub alayhi salam, his father lost, was that he lost his one son, right? He lost his one son that was given back to him, but in the process Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saving multiple sons of the like at the time of Egypt, because they were having like this drought, this famine, and then ultimately what happened was they were running out of food. They ran out of food. If Yusuf alayhi salam wasn't the prime minister, like if he didn't become the minister, like the food minister at the time, there would have been multiple families that would have lost their son. So in a way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took one son of Yaqub alayhi salam to save multiple sons of other families, right? If you think about his life like that. So yes, like when we think about our life stories, we're like, some things that happens, it's not good for us, but at the end it happens in a way that's better for us, right? So we're gonna go to like Yusuf alayhi salam's story. So what happened was Yusuf alayhi salam was one of the brother of like he had like 11 brothers, right? And all of them were older than him, and he was younger, and he had a younger brother named Binyamin, right? And his brothers that were older than him, they knew about the legacy that Yaqub alayhi salam was holding, which is their father, right? So Yaqub alayhi salam comes from this family of prophets, right? Ibrahim alayhi salam was a prophet, Yaqub alayhi salam was a prophet, And then what's going to happen is that his brother, Ismail alayhi salam, was also a prophet, right? So what was going to happen is that his family is also going to produce a prophet. So if you think about if you think about the monarchs, the kings, right? Like one king, their son is a king. The son's a king, right? So like the king's grandfather, like king's grandson is a king. So when you think about a legacy, when you think about somebody's like a monarch wise, that a father is a king, their son is going to be a king, their son's going to be a king. It kind of passes down. So lineage wise, if you have like a lineage, if you think about Rasulullah's lineage, his great grandson, like grandfather would have been Ismail alayhi salam, right? So I'm just trying to process it. I want you guys to understand it better too, that when you think about legacy and monarch, is that it gets passed down. So Yaqub alayhi salam was part of this legacy. He was part of this monarch in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his father prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him a prophet. So what did his sons thought? They thought that, okay, one of us is going to be a prophet too. So they already had this preconceived idea that, okay, one of us is going to be a prophet, right? And when you think about it, one thing I remember, when I attended the event, he was saying that if you are insecure about something, right, you always follow the person who has that thing, and you follow every single, whatever they're doing. You're like, okay, let me see. Let's say I'm like, oh, I just really want a job, or I really want to go somewhere, right? And then somebody else has the job. I'm like, okay, let me see what they're doing. Right? You want something, you look for it in other places, right? So what happened was Yaqub alayhi salam had his sons, and all of the sons knew that there's going to be a prophet among them. One of the brothers is going to be one, right? So they were looking for and every single brother, they were just looking for each other. They were like, okay, let's see which one of us is going to be a prophet. And part of the process was that Yaqub alayhi salam loved Yusuf alayhi salam. He adored Yusuf alayhi salam, right? And at the beginning, when you think about it, it's like, okay, our father loves it. Totally, he's his favorite child, right? But what ended up happening is that they were looking into Yusuf alayhi salam a little bit too much. They were like, okay, maybe he's gonna be the prophet. Why would our father love him so much? Maybe he's gonna be the next prophet. So when you think about it, they were jealous, but they were also insecure about the fact that Yusuf alayhi salam was gonna be a prophet, right? And one thing he was saying that, when you think about hurting, when you are hurt, so obviously, Yusuf alayhi salam's brother were hurt. The fact that they are not Yaqub alayhi salam's beloved, right? So one thing I remember, one of the events, he was basically the speaker, he was saying that only hurt people hurt another people. So if you're hurt, it's most likely that you have a bad day. And then, somebody ends up getting hurt by your words. Somebody ends up getting hurt by behavior, right? But what comes to, when you think about our religion, when you think about our Islam, our deen, right? If we are healed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can never hurt another person. So only hurt people can hurt another people. But if you're healed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would never think about hurting another person. And we're gonna see that example in our beloved Rasulullah, right? When you think about our beloved Rasulullah, he was so much hurt. If you think about his life, he lost one of his sons, and then he lost his other son, he lost his other son, and he lost all of his sons, right? And if you think about just one person losing a child, how sad they are. If you guys have been to any family, if you guys been to any relatives who lost their son, they're just mourning the person. They're like, oh my gosh, my beloved little child, my beloved kid. I wish I could just hold my kid one more time. I wish I could just hold my kid one more time, right? They're just so heartbroken. They're hurt, right? But think about that, but multiple times, and it's in the lifetime. Rasulullah saw every single one of his child pass away, except for Fatima radiallahu anha. But he saw all of his child passing away in front of his eyes, right? So you think about one person mourning one of their child versus Rasulullah mourning every single one of his child, and all of them died in his lifetime. So just think about a person being hurt. Nobody would have been more hurt than Rasulullah, right? But at the same time, if you think about his life, he was someone who's always there to, like, just help another person. He's always there to give comfort to another person. He's always there to just, give that, like, just be there for another person. And I share this story all the time. It's one of my favorite ones. That, when you think about Rasulullah's life, he was basically like a prime minister. He was basically had this country to run through, right? Like, he was running Medina. And at the same time, he would, like, be so attentive to this one, like, he would be so attentive to people around him, that one boy, little boy named Umair, he lost his, like, small bird Nagar, right? And then he would, like, even that small thing didn't just, like, leave his eyes. He noticed that thing. He's like, wait, where's your bird? He came up to Umair and he's like, where's your bird? Like, ma fala Nagar. Ya Umair, ma fala Nagar. Where's your bird? So if you think about it, when you care about people, that's when you notice things, right? So let's say you have your friend, right? And you guys, like, joke around, or you guys, like, go to the class together, right? One day you don't see your friend coming, or, like, your friend comes and then she has a really sad demeanor. She's like, oh yeah, I don't know. Like, she's just, you can tell by her, like, the tone that she's speaking and that she's really sad. Then you just ask her, like, what happened? Like, is your day going well? And she's like, oh, I don't know. I had an exam yesterday. It was really bad, right? So, like, when you are attentive, when you care about someone, that's when you notice things about that person, right? When you care about your friend, when you care about your sister, you care about the people around you, then that's when you notice small things about them. That, oh, I saw you, like, coming earlier with your umbrella. Today's raining. You forgot your umbrella. What happened, right? Oh, yeah, I was just having such a bad day, right? Like, you just, like, notice small things, right? So when you care about someone, or we care about people around you, that's when you notice things around you, right? Rasulullah was the type of person, he would notice smallest things. That just shows to us that he cared. He cared about people around him, right? To the point that a small boy losing his pet bird didn't go unnoticed from his eyes, right? And if you think about it, like Rasulullah, right? Like, he was so hurt, if you think about it. His whole life, he was going through sadness after sadness after sadness. But that didn't, like, stop him from being the most caring person, right? So yeah, like, when you think about, like, Yusuf alayhi salam, he had this, his brothers were hurt, and I went to a tangent to Rasulullah's life, but his brothers were hurt, right? So when they were hurt, and at the time that they didn't know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they didn't know, like, just, they weren't close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they were hurt, and they thought about hurting Yusuf alayhi salam. So what did they do? They went up to Yaqub alayhi salam and they were like, can you, like, send Yusuf alayhi salam with us? Like, can you send Yusuf with us? We're going to go hunting. We're going to go somewhere. We're just going to take him with us, right? And if you think about, like, siblings-wise, if you are the youngest child and you have this one time that you're going to go out with your older siblings, you get excited. Like, oh my gosh, I'm finally going out with my big brothers or big sisters, right? So Yusuf alayhi salam was basically really excited. He was happy. He's like, okay, I'm going to go out with my brothers. For the first time, they're taking me out, right? So if you think about that, and then versus what he actually had to face. He actually had to face something so sad that he was basically betrayed by his own brothers. They took him out, they threw him on a well, and they came back. So when they went and they came back to Yaqub alayhi salam, they said, oh, we took Yusuf alayhi salam out with us, but then a wolf ate him, right? And Yusuf alayhi salam was really young. He was probably like 8-9 years old, and he's in the well by himself, and it's dark. And if you think about us, like, if you guys have, like, if you guys turn off, like, the lights when you sleep, you're like, oh my gosh, it's dark, okay, I have to sleep. Or, like, you get scared, right? Think about an 8 or 9-year-old child being in the well, the depths of the well, by himself. And it's completely pitch black. There's nobody there, and his only brothers that were there with him, they abandoned him. And he's just there by himself. And if you think about, like, being hurt, nobody would have been more hurt than Yusuf alayhi salam, right? And as a young boy, he just didn't know what was gonna happen to him. And one thing I wanted to mention, why was his brothers insecure about him, right? Because he saw that dream in the beginning of Yusuf, like Surah Yusuf, if you read. I forgot to mention that he saw this dream of 11 stars and the moon bowing to him. And he came to his father and he's like, yeah, Abati, like, I saw this dream. I saw this, like, stars and moon bowing down to me. I don't know what that means, right? And then Yaqub alayhi salam was like, you should actually keep that to yourself. Don't mention it to anybody. Because Yaqub alayhi salam knew that that's actually a sign of prophethood, that he's going to become the next prophet. And obviously his brothers overheard him, and then that kind of comes into play about the fact that they were insecure. So they were insecure about Yusuf alayhi salam, and they were following every single, like, what he's doing, where he's going. They overheard the conversation, and that's where, like, it kind of grew. That they were like, oh, I know now, maybe he's the next prophet, and we have to, like, get him out of the picture because we want all of the love of our father. Why doesn't he love us like he loves him, right? So if you think about it, the insecurity kind of grew, right? So it's just like, coming back to the fact that Yusuf alayhi salam is in the well by himself, and he's just there, and he doesn't, even if he cries, who's going to listen to him, right? Even if he calls out for help, brothers, where did you go? Come back, take me with you guys. But then he doesn't have anybody because all of them are gone, right? So at the time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him that one day you're going to mention all of this that happened to you to your brothers, and you're going to be in a better position, right? So he had this consolation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if you think about, like, a little boy in the well, he doesn't know what's happening, and he doesn't have no idea why his brothers, like, left him there. What must have been going through his mind, right? But those actually, like, those, if you think about his life, if you look into his life in the future, right, those situation actually made him more mature. They made him grow up, because he had more things to face in his life. He's gonna be sold into slavery, in a little bit, and then he's gonna be thrown into prison eventually, right? If you think about his life, he went through so many things, right? But that made him the person that he was, that he judged better, that he knew how to, like, interpret dreams. He knew how to had a better judgment. He was really intellectual. He thought a lot, right? So when we're gonna, like, look into, like, Yusuf alayhi salam's life in the future too, like, he used to think so much that when he actually saw this opportunity, we're gonna come to that. I mean, I'm not gonna, like, jump the gun a little bit too much, but yeah. So Yusuf alayhi salam was in the well. And then he was obviously, like, by himself, and this one group of, like, travelers, they came by the well, and they heard this little boy crying, and they looked into the well, and there was Yusuf alayhi salam. So they obviously thought, oh, this is a good opportunity, we're gonna sold him, because they were obviously merchants. They basically sell things. They sell slaves, and at the time slavery was something that's so common, right? So they took him and they sold him to this big like a minister, basically, like, their house. They basically sold him there, right? So the minister bought him. He brought him to his house, and he showed Yusuf alayhi salam to his wife. And his wife was like, maybe we can adopt him, or we can take him as slave. So that's where Yusuf alayhi salam was basically he was sold into slavery, and he was working under this house. And the years were going by, and Yusuf alayhi salam didn't know nothing about his family. He didn't have a way to go back. He just didn't know what to do with his life, right? But he was still patient in a way that he would do his things. He would go by. He would move on, right? So years were going by. He was growing up. And what happened was that Yusuf alayhi salam, like the minister wife, she didn't had some good intention with Yusuf alayhi salam, right? So she basically wanted to take him in, and she wanted to basically, like, seduce him, right? She wanted to basically, like, take him in, and then, be like, oh, come to this room, like, I have something to show you, or something, right? So when Yusuf alayhi salam came into the room, she locked every single one of the doors, and she's like, come here. And then Yusuf alayhi salam, obviously, as he's grown up and he doesn't know what's going on. And at the time, what he said was that, I just take refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever you're trying to, like, say to me, whatever you're trying to want me to do, I'm just gonna, like, take refuge in Allah. And at the time, when you think about it, if Yusuf alayhi salam didn't, like, if he wasn't thrown into a well, he wouldn't be prepped, like, for the situation that's about to, like, he's about to hit. So he faced that situation in the well. He knew that he had nobody but Allah. What prepped him was that from that situation to this situation, what he's facing, he doesn't know what's going to happen next. He's taking refuge in Allah, because he has done that before. He knew that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was with him, and he is Ar-Rafiq, which we're going to come into, like, like a little bit of side note that we're going to say that Ar-Rafiq means the name that comes from the root word Rafaqa, like, the letters that kind of combines Ar-Rafiq, which means that somebody who's a traveling companion. So let's say you're in a desert and you're by yourself, and you're like, if you guys have seen those videos of desert, it's like really vast. There's nobody from your surrounding. You don't see anybody around you, right? Rafiq, not Ar-Rafiq means some like the companion. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So a companion, like if you would think that somebody is Rafiq to you at the moment, is somebody who is with you in that desert, who's with you, and you know that there's nobody around you but that person. That's Rafiq. And Ar-Rafiq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the companion to us. That means that He's always with us through our life journey. Like whatever we face, wherever we go, He's always with us, right? So when you think about like Yusuf alayhi salam, he basically he learned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one for him. He's the only one that's gonna be there for him, and he can take refuge in nobody but Allah, right? So that situation as a 7 or 8 year old boy, right, that prepped him for this situation that he just faced. That moment where he knew that he had nobody that can save him but Allah, and he's like, Ya Allah, I take refuge in you. I have nobody but you, just save me from this situation. And he just ran. And one of the things we like, when you think about his, like the story, the situation, all the doors were locked. If he was gonna go back, if he was gonna run into what is he gonna run into? A locked door. But that didn't stop him from moving, from running away. So whenever, let's say you have a situation that you're facing, let's say you're walking and this is there's a car accident, or something that's it's really late at night and you just don't know what to do. You're like, should I go or should I not, right? And you're scared and all that, right? We face those situations where you're I'm just scared to go back to my dorm. It's really late, right? And at that moment where you feel something in your heart, you're I don't know, I'm scared. And we have those moments where we are scared of something, right? I don't know, this exam, it's super, I just studied, but I'm not sure. This exam, I think I'm not gonna do good, right? We have those moments where we panic. We have those moments where I just don't know what to do, right? At that moment, just know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who's going to be there for you. And He's the only one who knows your situation. Even if, let's say, you say that, oh yeah, I'm probably my friend is taking this exam with me, right? But maybe she's not feeling the same as you are feeling. But just just take, talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dua at the moment. That, Ya Allah, I just don't know what to do, just help me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Rafiq, means that He's going to be there for you. He knows your situation. He's going to help you according to your situation because He knows it, right? So at the moment, what happened is Yusuf alayhi salam takes refuge in Allah right away. He's like, Ma'adallah, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to take refuge in you, Ya Allah, save me from this situation. And he basically ran for the door. And at that time, what happened was the ministers, all of them came in and they saw the situation. They're like, you are someone who did something wrong. Maybe you're the one, right? They don't know the situation. But they threw him into prison, right? And then Yusuf alayhi salam, wrongly accused, he was thrown into prison. And if you think about it, you're like, wait a minute, Yusuf alayhi salam had so many things that he went through, and now he's being thrown into prison, which is one thing on top of the other. He must have been so mad, or he must have been so out of patience. He must have been I don't know what to do anymore with my life. I've been one low after the another. Things are going wrong in my life. Nothing seems to get out of my nothing seems to go my way, right? But if you think about it, that's the moment where he met those two boys. If you know about those two people in Surah Yusuf, what happened was two of them were also thrown into prison, and one of them saw this dream. Both of them saw this dream, and they saw different dreams, right? And they asked Yusuf alayhi salam for help. They're like, oh, you look like someone, you can help us, right? So at that moment, I want to emphasize about one thing, that Yusuf alayhi salam, if you think they don't know Yusuf alayhi salam's story, right? We know his story. And he went through so many things, 3 things: thrown into a well, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison just now, right? So he went through so many things, 3 things, right? And those people, they don't know anything about those 3 things, right? But the first thing that they saw Yusuf alayhi salam, they thought that, oh, he looks like someone who can help us. So, when you think about someone who's going through so many things, you must not look like someone who can help another person, because you need help, right? Let's say I have exams, I have midterms coming up, right? I have really hard job, and then also on top of that, my lab is not working out, right? I have all of these things that are one low after the another. I'm going through a lot, right? And it's hard for us at that moment to be like someone who can help another person. Because you look like someone you need help. Like you need like, oh yeah, I'm going through a lot. I don't think I can help you. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, you can ask another person. I don't think I can help you, right? But Yusuf alayhi salam, he looked like someone who can help another person, despite the fact that he went through so much, right? That one person, like they don't know anything about his life story. They looked at him, they're like, I think you can help us. Like he just looked like someone who's willing to help another person, right? So when you think about Rasulullah too, he also went through so many things. But he also looked like someone who can help another person in a way that he would be noticing things about people in his life, right? So I would say that one thing I took from that time is like, Yusuf's own life story, that no matter what you're going through, always be willing to help another person. Like no matter like, okay, I have exams, I have this to deal with, but your friend asks you, can I borrow this book from you? And then you're like, oh, maybe, yeah, you can. Like you have to go to her dorm and give her that book, right? Or you have to like maybe like meet her in the library. You have studying to do. But always be someone who's willing to help another person. Oh, I think I can help you with that. Oh, it's gonna take 5-10 minutes. Okay, I'll just take a break and I'll give her the book, right? Or like she needs help with this math problem and you have exams coming up, right? You want to study too, right? Obviously study first, but also be a person who's always gonna be someone who's gonna help another person. I think I'm going like I have a lot in my plate, but at the same time I want to be someone who's helping another person. I want to be someone who's like somebody who can come up to me and like ask for help. Oh, maybe can you help me with this? Can you perhaps suggest something like this for me? Like like classes you took last semester. Can you tell me something, right? Sometimes we have so many things that we are like, oh, I have studying to do. I have this assignment to do. I don't think I can help her. Okay, I'll just tell like, no, I don't think I can help you. Instead, just look at the prophets, how they were. They were always someone who had so many things going on in their life. But they also were someone like, when another person saw them, they felt like, I can just go up to them and ask for help. They always like seen that way, like when you come off as someone like, prophets were someone who always came off as someone they were willing to help another person, right? So that one thing I would say, like, something I took off from the story is that no matter in what life situation you are at, always be someone who's willing to help another person. Always like be on the lookout in a way, like like does somebody need my help, or can I like do something for another person, despite the fact that you have so many things on your plate. Just be someone that another person can come to and be like, I think I can ask her for help. Oh, I think she's the one who can help me, right? So yeah, Yusuf was basically that person, and they were asking him that, oh, can you interpret our dream for us? Like we have this dream we saw and then we don't know what that means, right? So he basically, before he said what those dreams meant, he was basically talking to them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's like, oh, I will interpret your dream right away, but let me tell you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me tell you about my Rabb. Let me tell you about my family. Let me tell you how, like we're prophets. And he basically told them his life story. In a way, he was giving dawah to them. He was calling them to Islam, right? And that thing, one thing I remember, one speaker, he actually mentioned at that moment, he's like, when you love someone or you really like a person, you talk about them every time. Let's say you have your sister, your little sister. Anytime you have any mention to her, like anytime you can mention her, you will. Like, oh yeah, that's so cute. Oh, my sister would love that. Oh, there's ice cream. Oh, maybe I should buy that for my sister. Or like anytime you can think of, you will think about your sister, right? Anytime you can come up with like things to think of, you will think about your sister, right? So Yusuf alayhi salam, despite the fact that he went through so much, right? Just look at his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One time he had a chance to mention Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was mentioning to them. Despite the fact that he was in the prison. He was like, oh yeah, I can interpret you guys' dreams, but let me tell you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me tell you about the Rabb. Let me tell you about the one I worship, right? That just shows to you that no matter what was happening to his life, he was thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly. That in the well, he was like, I don't know what to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him that you can only seek refuge in me, right? That I'm the only one who's going to be there for you. That Yusuf learned, and he applied in that other situation where, the minister's wife was like basically, like asking him to come here. And he's like, no, I seek refuge in Allah. He's the only one who can help me, right? And to this moment in the prison, he was still like, oh, maybe I can tell you about your dreams, but let me tell you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see how he was mentioning about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always part of his story, right? So that's gonna come into his, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, Al-Latif, which means subtle. He's the most subtle, and we're gonna come back to that name, right? So let me just quickly like finish the story off. So basically he interpreted the dream, and then what happened was that the king, like Yusuf alayhi salam's case was basically brought to the attention of the king, and the king actually like when you have like a reappeal a case, basically Yusuf alayhi salam's case was basically brought up to the king, and the king actually looked into it, and he's like, what happened? And basically what come off, the evidence showed that Yusuf alayhi salam was innocent. So he was basically, he was released from prison. And when he was basically interpreting the dream to those guys, right, the two guys I mentioned, the king also saw a dream, right? And at that dream, king saw this, I think the dream was basically like 6 big cows were eating 6 small cows. And he didn't know what those mean, right? So the king came to interpreting the dream from different people. They didn't know what to say. And then those 2 men, one of them actually said to the king that, oh, one of the, the guy that you just released, he actually knows how to interpret dreams, right? So the king actually came, brought Yusuf alayhi salam to the court, and he's like, okay, so what do you think this dream means? And Yusuf alayhi salam basically told them what the interpretation of the dream was, which was basically that there's going to be a big famine. And if you don't store food, this famine is gonna kill a lot of people because you guys are gonna run out of food. So the kingdom was gonna basically have this big famine where they're gonna have a shortage of food. So basically Yusuf alayhi salam basically told them that you have to store food, and let me tell you how. And he basically told them how to store food, and the king was really impressed. The king actually took him as a minister. And what happened was, those years came where there was a shortage of food. But because of Yusuf alayhi salam, now they know how to store the food. So they had a way out, right, from the situation. And one of the family that came for food, because all of the families were coming to the kingdom, they were coming to the king for food, was Yusuf alayhi salam's family. So what happened in the whole process is that Yusuf alayhi salam was basically thrown out of his home, and then he was thrown into this well, and then he was brought into slavery, and then now he was thrown into prison, and now ultimately he was becoming a minister, and he is about to face the same brothers that did those things to him, right? So at the time what happened was they came to him, and then Yusuf alayhi salam denied them food because there was one brother missing. So they brought Binyamin, Yusuf alayhi salam's younger brother, right? So then what happened was that Binyamin came with them, and then basically Yusuf alayhi salam took him, and then he was like, I'm gonna basically have this story planned out. I'm your brother. And then they were basically reunited. Yusuf alayhi salam told his brother that he's Yusuf alayhi salam. Because at the time, when he was little, that's when they lost him. And now he's an older person. Now they kind of really recognize him, right? So Binyamin knew that Yusuf alayhi salam was who he was. And then what happened was that Yusuf alayhi salam basically had this whole stage where he framed Binyamin as a thief. So he's like, oh, he stole this from this kingdom. I don't think you can get food. And then what happened was those brothers were like, oh, he did that? Oh, he had an older brother who also did that. And then Yusuf just saw this whole thing that they didn't change. His brothers were the same brothers that hated him, years ago, and they still hate him, right? So they went back, and Yaqub alayhi salam obviously was really sad that, okay, first time one of my sons got lost with you guys, and now another son is not here with you. So they took Yaqub alayhi salam with them, and then I'm just basically running forward with the story that Yaqub alayhi salam basically came to the kingdom, and all of the brothers were there, and then Yaqub alayhi salam was there, and Binyamin was there, and that's when Yusuf alayhi salam told them that I am Yusuf, right? And at that moment, the brothers actually realized what they did. They were like, you're, when you see somebody after going through a lot, they're still having that same faith. What we see in people in Gaza, right? That's when you recognize that they have such good faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on their side, right? So the brothers actually recognized what Yusuf alayhi salam was going through, that he went through so much, but look at him now. He's a minister of this kingdom, Egypt, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on his side. So they recognize that we are in the wrong. We did to you was wrong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was always with you. And they basically recognized their own mistake. They were like, they actually went to Yaqub alayhi salam, and they're like, can you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us? We obviously did so much wrong to Yusuf alayhi salam, to Yaqub alayhi salam too, right? And Yaqub alayhi salam I'm basically running like through Yaqub alayhi salam's side of the story because he was also like, the patient. He was really patient through this whole time. And we can maybe like, dive into his life story one time. But one thing I just wanted to like come into that, all this like stage that you guys see right now, right? There's this whole lifestyle, like this whole life that Yusuf alayhi salam lived, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was always part of the story. And at the end, when he basically had this reveal against his brothers, like he revealed himself, one thing he said was that, basically it was his winning moment. What he saw that like, years ago, that dream was actually, it came true. That he basically, all his brothers actually admitted to him that they were wrong, right? So at that time, what Yusuf alayhi salam said that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been Al-Latif to me. That he's always been the one who's subtle with me, and he's the one who knows the most, right? I actually wrote the ayah that Yusuf alayhi salam said, and what he said, I'm going to quote to you guys. He said, "My Lord is most subtle, Latif, in achieving what he wills, and he is all-willing and truly wise." And that's the 100th ayah of Surah Yusuf, and I just read to you guys a translation, right? So one thing I wanted to focus on is that Yusuf alayhi salam could have had every single like opportunity to complain to them, to just be so angry at them that all you guys did was actually threw me into a well. Just like because of you guys, I was sold into slavery. I was in prison this whole time. Everything was because of what you guys did, right? Instead, he didn't say any of that. He forgave them. But one thing he recognized is that who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to him. He didn't just like, those negativity, if you think about it, he didn't let that affect him at the moment that was his winning moment. He was just thinking about the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was with him the whole time. Who he was that he was Al-Latif to him, right? And I know we're gonna run out of time, but I just wanted to mention like quickly, what does Al-Latif mean? So Al-Latif comes from the root word La, Ta, and Fa, and basically like the letters that it comes from, and it means subtlety and gentleness, right? So Ibn al-Qayyim, if you know him, he's one of the big scholars, and he has a lot of books if you guys want to read. He's really really amazing scholar. He basically said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's lutf, that Latif comes from the word lutf, that actually that gentleness shows in two ways. And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows subtlety in everything, the way he treats us, he shows subtlety. And the second thing is that he's subtle with everything. So two things: he is subtle with us, and he has subtlety with everything around us, right? So when you think about like Yusuf alayhi salam's life, right, throughout this whole journey, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was planning his life out, right? What showed that this thing was actually wrong, that thing that went wrong. If you guys do coding, if you type a wrong code, it shows error. If you type another code, it shows error. If you don't have capital letters, if you don't type out the right numbers, it shows you errors. And I was I'm learning R coding, so it's kind of it just came to my mind that when you have those moments like Yusuf alayhi salam, what his life was looking like is that he goes and he has error. He's thrown into a well. He goes again. He's moving on with his life. He's thrown into another error. He's thrown into prison. And then he's going again. When you think about it, everything that was going wrong in his life was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala planning out his life for his winning moment, which was him being a minister and coming in front of his brothers and telling them that he is Yusuf alayhi salam. That moment that he recognized that, Ya Allah, you have been a Latif to me, that everything that was wrong, that went wrong in my life, was basically going right according to your plan. So anything that happens in our life, you have to just think that, Ya Allah, you are a Latif to me at the moment. That I know that things are going wrong according to me, or things are not looking right. It's good, if you think about it, everything that goes wrong in your life is actually going right according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan. And at that time when you think that, oh, I don't know why this means that, I don't know why that means that, right? At that time you have to think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being Al-Latif to you, that he is being subtle to you, that everything that is going in according to your planning, it's not going according to your planning, it's going according to the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he is Al-Latif to you at that moment, right? So at the moment, you think, oh, I wish this happened that way. And when you have those moments where you're wait, that actually meant that when you look back into your life, you're like, oh, I'm so glad that didn't happen because this is happening, right? You have to just think about that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was being Al-Latif to me at that moment, right? So that's the name I wanted to like focus on, and I don't know what time is it. It's already 3. I think I have to go, but yes, I think just the key takeaways I want to take you guys is that, like, tell you guys is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always part of your story in every process of your, like, your life. He is Al-Latif to you. And when you think about him, you think that, Ya Allah, you are Latif to me. That everything that I'm going through, that I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe this is not right, maybe that's wrong, I'm just running into errors after errors after errors. You just have to think about Yusuf alayhi salam's life, right? After you think that he was also running into errors, right? But those errors were actually like the right coding according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan, because he's Al-Latif, right? So that's where I'm going to end here.